Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the sterile break room, Aiden Mitchell felt like an intruder, his coffee going cold amid the beige walls and corporate branding. The room's silence was suddenly broken by Patricia Winters, the legendary event coordinator. She stepped forward, her presence commanding, and her voice echoed through the empty space. Aiden, I have an unusual request. Patricia's eyes, sharp as ever, bore into him. The fashion auction needs a hero. Aiden almost choked on his coffee. Heroic acts aren't my forte, Patricia, especially not involving fashion. He set down his mug, now barely warm, on the generic office countertop. The Carmichael gown, our auction's star, needs a model. You know, manage the clipboards, hand out bidding paddles, normal volunteer stuff. This is an emergency. Patricia's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. The dress is expected to bring in at least $30,000 for the children's hospital. We can't just hang it on a mannequin. It needs movement, elegance.
And you think I can provide that?
He gestured down at his navy blue suit, white button-up, and sensible Oxford shoes, the unofficial uniform of Westridge Financial's marketing department. I'm the most boring dresser in the office. But you have the right build. Tall, slim, narrow shoulders. Her eyes assessed him with disturbing professional detachment. And you were the lead in that Shakespeare production for the company picnic, the one where you played Rosalind in As You Like It.
Yes.
Aiden groaned.
That was different. It was a comedy. This is a black tie fundraiser with all our biggest clients.
Patricia stepped closer, desperation evident. Please, Aiden. It's just one walk down the runway. The gown is stunning. Pink chiffon with crystal accents. The designer, Eleanor Carmichael, donated it specifically for tonight. We can't let her down. Aiden glanced at his watch. The auction was in 5 hours. He thought of the children's hospital, remembered touring the facility last year during the company's volunteer day. Those kids needed every dollar they could get. This stays between us, right? I do this one walk, then go back to registration duty? Relief washed over Patricia's face. Absolutely. Just us and Marjorie from styling. She'll help with everything. Everything turned out to be considerably more than Aiden had bargained for. 3 hours later, he stood in a hidden corner of the hotel's preparation room, barely recognizing his reflection. Marjorie, a petite woman with an artist's touch and the energy of a tornado, had transformed him. His short blonde hair was concealed beneath a meticulously styled wig of long, flowing golden locks. His face had been contoured with expert precision, cheekbones subtly highlighted, jawline softened, eyes enhanced with a touch of shadow that made them appear larger and more expressive. You clean up nicely. Marjorie stepped back, admiring her work. Her burgundy wrap dress rustled as she circled him, making final adjustments. Honestly, you have features most women would kill for. Those eyelashes! I didn't even need to add falsies. Thanks, I think. Aiden shifted uncomfortably in the undergarments that created the illusion of curves. I can't believe I let Patricia talk me into this. Speaking of Patricia, Marjorie glanced at her phone. She says we need a name for you, for the program and the MC's introduction. A name? The reality of walking in front of hundreds of people suddenly hit him anew. I hadn't thought about that. How about Ella? Marjorie suggested, adjusting a stray lock of the blonde wig. It's simple, elegant. Ella, he repeated, testing it out. For some reason, it felt right. Ella works. Marjorie smiled triumphantly. Perfect! Now, let's get you into the gown. The dress itself was a marvel of design. Layers of delicate pink chiffon cascaded from a structured bodice adorned with thousands of tiny crystals that caught the light with every movement. When Marjorie carefully helped him step into it, the fabric whispered against his skin in a way that felt strangely comforting. Eleanor Carmichael outdid herself with this one, Marjorie murmured, working the hidden zipper. It's valued at $15,000, but its auction value should be much higher. When she finally stepped back, Aiden, now fully transformed into Ella, couldn't help but stare at the mirror. The gown flowed around him like water, the crystal accents creating constellations across the bodice. The color brought warmth to his complexion, and the cut somehow created the illusion of a feminine figure where there was none.
I don't even recognize myself,
he whispered. Marjorie handed him a pair of crystal-studded heels. These are a size 11 women's. Should fit your size 9 men's feet perfectly. We padded the straps for comfort, but be careful.
Small steps, heel to toe.
40 minutes of practice later, Aiden had mastered walking in the heels well enough not to embarrass himself, or so he hoped. The auction's start time loomed ever closer. Remember, Patricia instructed, appearing in the doorway in her element, clipboard in hand. You're 5th in the lineup. When they announce an exclusive Eleanor Carmichael original gown, that's your cue. Walk slowly to show off the movement of the fabric. Pause at the end of the runway, turn gracefully, and walk back. No smiling. Think high fashion, slightly aloof. Aiden nodded, heart pounding. 5th item. Walk slowly. Aloof. Got it. As Patricia turned to leave, she paused. Ella, thank you. Truly. Then he was alone, listening to the muffled sounds of the auction beginning in the ballroom beyond. Checking his reflection one last time, Aiden took a deep breath and attempted to channel the confidence he desperately needed. The first 4 items passed in a blur. Aiden peeked from behind the curtain, taking in the crowded ballroom. Round tables filled with the city's elite surrounded the runway that cut through the center of the room. Spotlights illuminated the path he would soon walk.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer's voice boomed, the highlight of tonight's charity auction, an exclusive Eleanor Carmichael original evening gown, making its debut tonight before her runway show in Paris next month.
Aiden's cue. With a final, steadying breath, he stepped through the curtain. The spotlight hit him immediately, warm against his skin. He focused on his walking, heel to toe, slow, deliberate steps, as he glided down the runway. The dress moved with him, the chiffon layers creating a mesmerizing effect as they caught the light. A hush fell over the crowd, followed by appreciative murmurs. Aiden kept his expression composed, channeling that aloof, high-fashion look Patricia had insisted upon. At the end of the runway, he paused, giving everyone a moment to admire the gown from the front before executing a careful turn. The crystals on the bodice caught the spotlight, sending prisms of light dancing across the ceiling. There was an audible gasp from the audience. As Aiden made his way back toward the curtain, he heard the auctioneer begin the bidding.
Shall we start at $15,000, the estimated retail value of this exquisite piece?
Before he could disappear backstage, the bidding had already reached $20,000. Aiden slipped behind the curtain, heart racing with adrenaline and relief. He'd done it. No stumbles, no wardrobe malfunctions. Mission accomplished. Patricia appeared at his side, eyes wide with excitement. They're going crazy out there. The bidding's already at $35,000. Aiden laughed, the tension draining from his shoulders.
Really? That's amazing for the hospital.
Stay ready, Patricia warned. The winner might want a photo with you. Wait, that wasn't part of the deal. Sold! The auctioneer's voice boomed from the ballroom. For $52,000 to Mr. Reynolds at table 9. Patricia's face lit up. 52,000! That's a record! She grabbed her radio. Yes, bring Ella back out for the presentation and photos. Before Aiden could protest, he was being ushered back onto the runway. The spotlight found him again as he approached the end, where a distinguished older gentleman in an impeccably tailored tuxedo waited with the auctioneer. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Howard Reynolds, our generous bidder, with the beautiful model showcasing Eleanor Carmichael's masterpiece. Howard Reynolds smiled broadly, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Simply stunning, he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. My wife will look magnificent in this at the governor's ball. The photographer stepped forward. If you could stand together, please. Aiden, still fully in character as Ella, smiled demurely and stood beside Reynolds, conscious of how the dress moved with each breath. The camera flashed repeatedly. Wonderful, Reynolds said. And might I know your name, young lady? I'd like to tell my wife who modeled her gown so beautifully. Without missing a beat, Aiden replied in a soft, slightly higher pitch than his normal voice.
Ella, it's been my pleasure to showcase Miss Carmichael's design.
More photos followed, including some with Patricia and the charity's director. Throughout it all, Aiden maintained his composure, his transformation into Ella seeming more natural with each passing minute. The evening should have ended there. Aiden should have changed back into his navy suit, resumed his registration table duties, and had an amusing story to tell at the next office happy hour. Instead, as he prepared to slip away, Patricia appeared with another urgent request. Mr. Reynolds is hosting an after-auction reception in the hotel's penthouse suite. He specifically asked for you to make an appearance, with the dress. He wants to surprise his wife with both her gift and the model.
Patricia, no.
Aiden's voice cracked back to its normal register.
The deal was one walk down the runway.
Please, Aiden. Reynolds is our biggest donor, and he's considering doubling his annual contribution to the hospital. 1 hour, tops. Her eyes pleaded. Just mingle a bit. Let him show off his purchase. Then you can disappear. And so Aiden found himself in the elevator to the penthouse, still dressed as Ella, wondering how he'd gotten himself into this predicament. The elevator doors opened directly into an opulent suite where about 30 guests mingled, champagne glasses in hand.
Ah, here she is,
Reynolds boomed upon seeing him.
The lovely Ella.
All eyes turned toward the elevator. Aiden stepped forward, summoning every ounce of poise he could muster. A waiter appeared with champagne, which he accepted gratefully.
My dear. Reynolds guided him toward an elegant woman in an emerald green gown. This is my wife, Vivian. Vivian, this is Ella, who modeled your new dress so magnificently.
Vivian Reynolds extended a manicured hand.
Enchanted. You certainly did justice to the gown.
Are you a professional model? Aiden shook her hand delicately.
I work with the Charity Foundation,
he improvised.
Just helping out tonight.
Well, you have quite the presence. Vivian appraised him with an expert eye. The camera loves you. Those photos they took downstairs were stunning.
Thank you,
Aiden replied, taking a sip of champagne to steady his nerves. What followed was an hour of careful conversation, deflected questions about his background, and increasingly comfortable navigation of his temporary identity, People complimented the dress, asked about his modeling experience, and seemed genuinely charmed by the mysterious Ella. By the time he finally escaped, pleading an early morning commitment, Aiden was exhausted but strangely exhilarated. He'd pulled it off, a complete transformation for one evening, all for a good cause. Back in the hotel's preparation room, now empty save for Marjorie, who waited to help him change, Aiden carefully stepped out of the gown. "You were magnificent," Marjorie praised, hanging the dress up carefully. "A natural." Aiden laughed as he removed the wig, revealing his musk-blonde hair beneath. "I think one night as Ella is enough for me." "Well, you raised a record amount for the Children's Hospital," Marjorie pointed out. "You should be proud." As Aiden wiped away the makeup, gradually revealing his male features again, he reflected on the strange evening. "It was for a good cause," he agreed. "And honestly, kind of fun, in a terrifying way." Little did he know, the evening's events had set something much bigger in motion. 3 days later, Aiden was back at his desk in Westridge Financial's marketing department, analyzing data for a client presentation, when Patricia appeared at his cubicle. "Got a minute?" She looked uncharacteristically nervous. Aiden nodded, saving his work. "Sure. What's up?" Instead of speaking, she placed her tablet on his desk, open to a social media page. Aiden's stomach dropped as he recognized himself, or rather Ella, in the pink Carmichael gown. The photo had over 15,000 likes. "The Reynolds posted these on their charity foundation page," Patricia explained. "They tagged Eleanor Carmichael, who reposted them. People are going crazy trying to figure out who the mystery model is." Aiden scrolled through the comments with growing alarm. "Who is this gorgeous woman? That dress looks like it was made for her. Is she a professional model? Need her name." "This is fine," Aiden said, trying to convince himself more than Patricia. "No one knows it's me. I'll fade into obscurity by next week." Patricia bit her lip. "That's the thing. Eleanor Carmichael called me personally this morning. She wants Ella for her holiday charity fashion show next month. She was incredibly impressed with how you showcased her design." Aiden stared at her. "That's insane. I'm not a model. I'm a financial marketing analyst. I'm a man, in case you've forgotten." "She's offering to donate 3 exclusive gowns to our hospital charity if you'll do it. That's potentially over $100,000, Aiden." He leaned back in his chair, mind racing. One night was one thing, but a fashion show? That's a whole different level of commitment to this charade. "Just think about it." Patricia stood to leave. "For what it's worth, you really were amazing." As she walked away, Aiden turned back to the photos on the tablet. The person looking back at him was both familiar and foreign, confident, elegant, mysterious. People weren't just commenting on the dress, they were captivated by Ella herself. That evening in his apartment, Aiden couldn't stop thinking about the proposition. He lived alone, having recently broken up with his girlfriend of 2 years. She'd cited his workaholic tendencies and emotional unavailability as reasons for ending things. The irony wasn't lost on him that as Ella, he'd connected more genuinely with strangers at the Reynolds reception than he sometimes did in his daily life. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Eleanor Carmichael increased her offer. 5 gowns for the charity if you agree. Please consider it. The hospital's pediatric wing needs the funding." Aiden sighed, staring at the ceiling of his bedroom. The logical part of his brain, the part that excelled at financial analysis, recognized this as emotional manipulation. Yet the memory of his company tour through the children's hospital last year lingered. The kids with their brave smiles, despite their circumstances. The overworked staff doing their best with limited resources. With a groan, he picked up his phone and typed a response. "I'll do it. One more time. No additional appearances. No media interviews." Patricia's reply came almost instantly. "Thank you. Details to follow. You're literally saving lives."
"Don't oversell it,"
he texted back, already wondering if he'd made a mistake. The following weeks passed in a blur of secret preparations. Eleanor Carmichael insisted on fitting sessions, which required Aiden to leave work early on Fridays with vague excuses about personal appointments. The designer herself turned out to be a formidable woman in her 60s with silver-streaked black hair and decades of experience that commanded respect. At their first meeting in her private studio, she circled Aiden with critical appraisal. "The bone structure is exquisite," she declared. "And those eyes, they photograph like gemstones. I can work with this canvas." Aiden stood awkwardly in the center of her workspace, surrounded by sketches and fabric swatches. "I should clarify that this is a one-time arrangement. For charity." Eleanor waved a dismissive hand. "Of course, dear. Now, we need to discuss your walking technique. You have natural grace, but there's room for improvement." What followed was a crash course in professional modeling techniques. Eleanor enlisted one of her regular models, Valerie, to train Aiden. Valerie, upon learning the unusual circumstances, found the situation hilarious, but proved to be a patient teacher. "Shoulders back but relaxed," she instructed during their third session. "Your natural instinct is to hunch slightly. That's a masculine trait we need to unlearn." Aiden practiced walking the length of Eleanor's studio, focusing on maintaining the correct posture while wearing increasingly elaborate gowns. The clothing itself was a revelation, constructed with such precision that it created the illusion of curves where there were none, accentuating his height while softening his overall appearance. "You're getting quite good at this," Valerie remarked after a particularly successful run.
"Sure you don't want to consider a career change?"
Aiden laughed.
"I think financial analysis is slightly more stable as a long-term profession."
But privately, he couldn't deny that these sessions had become the highlight of his weeks. There was something liberating about stepping into Ella's identity, a freedom from the rigid expectations he'd always placed on himself. As Ella, he could be graceful, expressive, even a bit mysterious, qualities he'd never associated with himself. Eleanor designed 5 distinct looks for the charity show, each more elaborate than the last. The finale piece, a winter-themed gown in pale blue with crystal and pearl embellishments, was so breathtaking it momentarily silenced even Aiden when he first tried it on.
"This is..."
He trailed off, staring at his reflection in Eleanor's studio mirrors.
"Transformative,"
the designer finished for him, making a minor adjustment to the crystal-encrusted bodice.
"That's the power of exceptional fashion, Ella. It reveals rather than conceals."
The name no longer startled him. Over the past weeks, he'd grown accustomed to being addressed as Ella during these sessions. It had become a comfortable alter ego, existing in parallel to his everyday life. The night of Eleanor Carmichael's holiday charity show arrived with a flurry of activity. The venue, an upscale hotel ballroom transformed into a winter wonderland, buzzed with energy. Models rushed between hair, makeup, and dressing stations. Photographers jostled for position along the runway. In a cordoned-off section reserved for Eleanor's top models, Aiden sat perfectly still as a makeup artist worked on his face, while a hairstylist arranged the now familiar blonde wig into an elaborate updo.
"Nervous?"
asked the makeup artist, applying a subtle highlight to his cheekbones.
"Terrified,"
Aiden admitted.
But it's for a good cause.
This show was significantly larger than the auction had been. Over 400 guests would be watching, including fashion industry insiders, celebrities, and society figures. The thought made his stomach twist. Eleanor appeared behind him, resplendent in a black velvet gown, her signature look for all her shows. Ella, darling, you look magnificent. Remember, you're in the show's 5th segment, then the finale. The blue gown is causing quite a stir backstage. Everyone's dying to see it on you. Aiden nodded, trying to control his racing heart. I remember the sequence. 5 minor turns on the first look, then the full runway circuit for the finale. Perfect. Eleanor squeezed his shoulder. Channel that mysterious quality you have. The camera adores it. As the show's start time approached, Aiden found himself surrounded by professional models in various stages of dress. Unlike his previous experience where he'd been hidden away, here he was part of the ensemble, expected to change quickly between looks with minimal privacy. His first outfit, a burgundy evening gown with a dramatic backdrape, hung ready on a labeled rack. The second outfit waited for the quick change area backstage. Professional dressers stood by to assist. 5 minutes, everyone, called the show's director. First segment, places please. The models for the opening segment hurried to their positions. Aiden watched on a monitor as the lights dimmed in the ballroom, music swelled, and Eleanor took the microphone to welcome her guests and explain the charitable cause. This evening's proceeds will benefit 3 children's hospitals across the country, she announced to applause. Every purchase from tonight's collection will see 30% donated directly to these vital institutions. Then the music changed tempo, the runway lights blazed to life, and the show began. Aiden watched the seasoned professionals make their entrances, taking mental notes on their timing and expressions. All too quickly, it was time for his segment. A dresser helped him into the burgundy gown, making last-minute adjustments, while another touched up his lip color. Remember, Valerie whispered as she returned from her walk. Chin slightly down, eyes forward, shoulders relaxed, but straight. Aiden nodded, positioning himself in the lineup. 3 models would go before him. Then it would be his turn. The music shifted to a dramatic orchestral piece as his segment began. The model ahead of him disappeared through the curtain, and then the stage manager touched his elbow. His signal. Taking a deep breath, Aiden stepped onto the runway. The lights were blinding, the audience a dark mass beyond the illuminated path. He focused on his walking, the technique they'd practiced for weeks, and felt the heavy silk of the burgundy gown moving perfectly with each step. At the end of the runway, he executed the choreographed series of turns, the back drape swirling dramatically as cameras flashed. The audience's reaction was immediate, appreciative murmurs and applause. As Aiden returned backstage, the rush of adrenaline made him almost dizzy. Brilliant! Eleanor greeted him. Quick now, change for the finale! The backstage area erupted into controlled chaos as all the models prepared for the show's conclusion. Dressers worked with practiced efficiency to help Aiden out of the burgundy gown and into the breathtaking blue finale piece. This gown was by far the most complex. Layers of sheer ice blue fabric over a structured bodice adorned with thousands of crystals and pearls arranged in snowflake patterns. It required careful handling and precise positioning. 30 seconds to finale, the stage manager called. As Aiden took his place in line, positioned last as the show's highlight, Valerie gave him an encouraging smile. You've got this, she whispered. You're a natural. The finale music began, a soaring instrumental piece that filled the ballroom. One by one, the models made their final appearances, each garment more spectacular than the last, building to the show's crescendo. Then it was Aiden's turn. He stepped onto the runway to an audible collective gasp from the audience. The blue gown caught the light in a way that made it appear to glow from within, the crystals creating a constellation effect with every movement. He progressed down the runway with measured steps, the training of the past weeks now instinctive. At the end, he paused, allowing photographers a moment to capture the gown from the front before executing a slow turn that showcased the dramatic cascading train. The applause was thunderous. Camera flashes created a strobing effect as Aiden made his way back, joining the line of models who had reassembled on the runway. Eleanor emerged from backstage, taking her place at the center as all the models took their final bow together. As they retreated backstage, the adrenaline that had carried Aiden through began to subside, leaving him shaky but exhilarated. "Phenomenal," Eleanor declared, embracing him briefly. "You've exceeded all expectations." The post-show reception was already in full swing when Aiden, still dressed in the blue gown, entered the adjoining ballroom. As agreed upon with Patricia and Eleanor, he would make a brief appearance, then slip away before guests became too inquisitive. He hadn't counted on becoming the center of attention. Within minutes, he was surrounded by admirers, photographers, and industry figures, all captivated by both the gown and its wearer. "Ella, darling." Howard Reynolds appeared with his wife, Vivian. "We told Eleanor you were a star after the auction. Didn't we say so, Vivian?" "Absolutely," Vivian agreed, air-kissing Aiden's cheeks. "That blue is sensational with your complexion, dear." Before Aiden could formulate a response, he was approached by a sharp-eyed woman with a media credential. "Amelia Chen, Fashion Forward magazine." She introduced herself. "I'd love to feature you in our upcoming Faces to Watch spread. Can we schedule a shoot?" I'm afraid my schedule is quite limited," Aiden demurred, searching the crowd for Patricia or Eleanor, anyone who might extract him from this situation. "At least give me your contact information," Amelia pressed, producing a business card. "You have a unique quality the camera adores. Very rare." More people joined the circle around him, asking questions he couldn't answer truthfully. Where was he from? Which agency represented him? Had he worked internationally? Just as the situation was becoming unbearable, Eleanor appeared at his side. "I'm afraid I must steal Ella away," she announced smoothly. "Buyer consultations. You understand." She guided him through the crowd toward a private side room, closing the door behind them. Aiden collapsed into the nearest chair, the weight of the gown suddenly overwhelming. "Thank you," he said. "That was getting complicated." Eleanor poured 2 glasses of champagne from a waiting bottle, handing one to him. "You've created quite a sensation out there. The blue gown has already sold, twice. I've promised to make a second for a Saudi princess who saw it on our live stream." Aiden took a grateful sip. "That's wonderful for the charity." "Indeed." Eleanor settled into a chair opposite him, studying his face. "I have a proposal for you, Ella. Or should I say, Aiden." He tensed. "I've fulfilled my commitment. Tonight was the agreement. And you've done so magnificently. But consider this. The holiday charity circuit is just beginning. The Children's Hospital Winter Ball, the Metropolitan Museum's Crystal Gala, the New Year's Eve charity countdown, all major fundraisers, all seeking that special element to drive donations. You want me to continue this masquerade?" Aiden stared at her in disbelief. "For the remainder of the season only. 6 weeks, 7 events maximum. We'll compensate you for your time beyond the charitable aspect," Eleanor said, practically. "Think of the good you could do. Tonight alone, you've helped raise over $200,000. Aiden stood, carefully navigating the gown's train.
It's not just about the time commitment. It's complicated. I have a career, a life.
A life where you analyze market trends and create PowerPoint presentations, Eleanor observed shrewdly. Tell me, when was the last time you felt as alive as you did on that runway tonight? The question struck uncomfortably close to the truth. These past weeks, as Ella had awakened something in him, a confidence, a freedom of expression he'd never allowed himself in his everyday life. Consider it, Eleanor said, rising to leave. No decision needed tonight, but don't be too quick to close a door that fate has unexpectedly opened for you. After she left, Aiden remained in the quiet room, contemplating his reflection in a full-length mirror. The woman who looked back at him was poised, elegant, almost regal in the crystalline blue gown. It was still startling to recognize himself in this form, yet increasingly, it didn't feel like a disguise so much as another facet of himself. Later that night in his apartment, having carefully removed the elaborate makeup and returned to his male appearance, Aiden found he couldn't sleep. His mind kept returning to Eleanor's offer and the strange double life he'd been living. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Check your email. You're trending." With a sense of foreboding, he opened his laptop. Patricia had sent links to various social media platforms and fashion blogs, all featuring photos from the night's show. The hashtag Mysterious Ella was gaining traction, with thousands speculating about the breakthrough model who had captivated the charity fashion show. One photo in particular had gone viral, a moment captured as he turned at the end of the runway, the blue gown's train creating a perfect spiral around him, his expression one of serene confidence as he gazed just past the camera. It was otherworldly, ethereal even. Scrolling through the comments, Aiden was struck by how many people responded not just to the gown, but to the persona he'd created. There's something different about her, not just another pretty face. That poise, that elegance, old Hollywood vibes. Who is she? No social media presence I can find. The mystery was only enhancing the appeal. In an age of oversharing, Ella's absence from social platforms made her more intriguing, not less. A new email notification appeared, from Eleanor Carmichael. The subject line read simply, "The Winter Ball, next Saturday." Aiden hesitated, then clicked to open it. The Children's Hospital Winter Ball Committee reached out. They've doubled their donation request if you'll make an appearance in a custom gown. No runway, just attendance as a special guest. Car service provided. Reply if interested. He stared at the screen, the cursor blinking in the reply field. 6 weeks, Eleanor had said. 7 events, maximum. Then back to normal life. But what if normal life was what he'd been using to hide from something deeper? The question disturbed him. After several minutes of internal debate, he began to type. What time should the car arrive? The weeks that followed transformed Aiden's life in ways he couldn't have anticipated. By day, he maintained his role at Westridge Financial, analyzing market trends and creating client presentations. Evenings and weekends, however, increasingly belonged to Ella. The Children's Hospital Winter Ball proved even more successful than Eleanor had predicted. Arriving in a midnight blue gown with silver accents that evoked a starry night sky, Ella became the event's sensation. Photographs appeared across social media and in society pages, the mystique around the enigmatic model only growing with each appearance. 3 days later came the Metropolitan Museum's Crystal Gala, where Ella wore an emerald green creation that complemented her now signature long blonde hair. Eleanor had styled it in loose waves that framed her face, enhancing the feminine illusion. Each event required detailed preparation. Aiden would leave work, rush to Eleanor's studio for the transformation process, then emerge hours later as Ella, poised and confident. The routine became almost normal. The careful application of makeup, the fitting of appropriate undergarments to create a feminine silhouette, the wig styling, the gown fitting. What wasn't normal was how comfortable it was becoming. "You navigate in heels better than most women I know," remarked Valerie during a brief training session before the governor's charity auction. "It took me years to master that skill." Aiden, or rather Ella at that moment, smiled. Necessity is a remarkable teacher. The most challenging aspect wasn't the physical transformation, but maintaining the charade during hours of social interaction. Ella needed a backstory, one simple enough to remember, but detailed enough to withstand casual questioning. Eleanor, Patricia, and Aiden crafted one carefully. Ella was a part-time model who primarily worked in Europe, visiting the States temporarily. Her private nature was explained as a preference for charitable work over commercial modeling. The story was vague enough to deflect detailed inquiries while satisfying casual curiosity. As December progressed, Aiden found himself declining social invitations that conflicted with Ella's appearances. Old friends noticed his absence but accepted his excuses about work commitments and year-end responsibilities. Only his sister Rebecca, visiting from Seattle for a weekend, pressed harder. "You're different," she observed over coffee in his apartment. "Distracted, but also, I don't know, more confident somehow?" Aiden shrugged, avoiding her gaze. End-of-year pressure at work. As he prepared for bed, the events of the day replayed in his mind. Rebecca's inquiry about his personal life left him thoughtful. He realized that, indeed, Ella had opened up a new world for him, a world where he felt alive and understood. It was as if she had awakened a dormant part of his identity, allowing him to explore facets of himself he never knew existed. The more he pondered, the more convinced he became that this wasn't merely about a professional project. It was a journey of self-discovery, and perhaps one that needed a touch of personal indulgence. The holidays seemed like an ideal time for such an exploration. With Ella as his guide, he felt ready to venture into these uncharted territories.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!